If the tribunal please, first I would like to submit on behalf of our British allies a series of exhibits pertaining to the Waffen-SS without reading them. It's merely statistical information with respect to the number of Waffen-SS guards used at the concentration camps. I ask that the witness be shown exhibits D745A, B, D746A and B, D747, D748, D749B, and D750, one of them being an affidavit of this witness. Go ahead. Has he got the German? Witness, you made one of these affidavits which have been handed to you.
Jawohl.
And you are familiar with the contents of the others.
Jawohl.
And do you testify that those figures are true and correct?
Jawohl.
Very good. Those will become exhibit numbers 810 USA. Witness, from time to time, did any high Nazi officials or functionaries visit the camp at Mauthausen or Dachau while you were there?
Jawohl.
Will you state the names of such persons to the tribunal, please?
Ich kann mich noch entsinnen auf 1935, als sämtliche Gauleiter in Dachau unter Führung von Reichsführer Himmler besichtigt haben. Über die Einzelnen kann ich mich da nicht mehr entsinnen.
Do you recall any of the ministers having visited either of those camps while you were there?
Ist jetzt gemeint diese Besichtigung 1935?
At any time while you were at either of those concentration camps?
Jawohl. 1938 Herr Minister Frick in Sachsenhausen mit Regierungspräsidenten. Und
Do you recall any other ministers who were there at any time?
in Sachsenhausen nicht, aber in Auschwitz der Justizminister und
Who was he?
Tirak.
And who else? Do you recall any others?
Jawohl, ich kann jetzt den Namen nicht sagen. Ich weiß, aber
Well, who?
ich habe das schon angegeben im Protokoll, aber mir ist der Name jetzt entfallen.
All right. You have testified that many of the execution orders were signed by Mueller. Is that correct?
Jawohl.
Is it not a fact that all of those execution orders which you testify were signed by...
Verzeihen, Herr Präsident, es werden hier Urkunden vorgelegt. Der Zeuge über den Inhalt dieser Urkunden befragt. Die Verteidigung ist nicht in der Lage, der Verhandlung zu folgen, weil wir nicht wissen, was in diesen Urkunden drinnen steht. Ich bitte zu veranlassen, dass wir auch von diesen Urkunden Kenntnis bekommen.
Haven't copies of these documents been handed to the defense?
Yes, I so understood. We have copies here. Well, you got some more? Yes, we have one copy there, but we have others, however many they want. Five German copies have been distributed. Well, to whom?
Well, the matter can be looked into.
Witness, I was asking you about these execution orders which you testify were signed by Mueller. Do you understand?
Jawohl.
Is it not a fact that all of these execution orders which you testify were signed by Mueller were always signed by order of or as representative of the chief of the RSHA, Kaltenbach?
Ja, es stand drunter, bei den Exemplaren, die ich im Original in der Hand hatte, nachdem ich in Oranienburg tätig war, stand darunter mit dem Briefkopf Reichssicherheitshauptamt I.V. Müller. In Vertretung.
In other words, Mueller was merely signing as the representative of the chief of the RSHA, Kaltenbach. Is that not correct?
So muss ich das annehmen.
And of course you know that Mueller was a subordinate of the chief of the RSHA, Kaltenbach.
Jawohl.
Now, witness, you made an affidavit, did you not, at the request of the prosecution?
Jawohl.
I ask that the witness be shown Exhibit 3868 PS, which will become U.S. Exhibit 818. You signed that affidavit voluntarily, witness?
Jawohl.
And the affidavit is true in all respects?
Jawohl.
This, if the tribunal please, we have in 4 languages. Some of the matters covered in this affidavit you have already told us about in part, so I will omit some parts of the affidavit. If you will follow along with me as I read, please. Do you have a copy of the affidavit before you?
Jawohl.
I'll omit the first paragraph and start with paragraph 2. I have been constantly associated with the administration of concentration camps since 1934, serving at Dachau until 1938, then as adjutant in Sachsenhausen from 38 to May 1, 1940, when I was appointed commandant of Auschwitz. I commanded Auschwitz until 1 December 43 and estimate that at least 2,500,000 victims were executed and exterminated there by gassing and burning, and at least another 500,000 succumbed to starvation and disease, making a total dead of about 3 million. This figure represents about 70% or 80% of all persons sent to Auschwitz as prisoners, the remainder having been selected and used for slave labor in the concentration camp industry. Included among the executed and burnt were approximately 20,000 Russian prisoners of war, previously screened out of prisoner of war cages by the Gestapo, who were delivered at Auschwitz in Wehrmacht transports operated by regular Wehrmacht officers and men. The remainder of the total number of victims included about 100,000 German Jews and great numbers of citizens, mostly Jewish, from Holland, France, Belgium, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Greece, or other countries. We executed about 400,000 Hungarian Jews alone at Auschwitz in the summer of 1944. That is all true, witness?
Ja. Jawohl.
Now, I'll omit the first few lines of paragraph 3 and start in the middle of paragraph 3. Prior to establishment of the RSHA, Secret State Police Office Gestapo and the Reich Office of Criminal Police were responsible for arrests, commitments to concentration camps, punishments, and executions therein. After organization of the RSHA, all of these functions were carried on as before, but pursuant to orders signed by Heydrich as chief of the RSHA. While Kaltenbrunner was chief of RSHA, orders for protective custody, commitments, punishment, and individual execution were signed by Kaltenbrunner or by Mueller, chief of the Gestapo, as Kaltenbrunner's deputy. 4.
Colonel Amen.
Yes.
Just for the sake of accuracy, at the last word in paragraph 2, or the last date rather, is that 1943 or 44?
44, I believe. Is that date correct, witness, at the close of paragraph 2, namely that the 400,000 Hungarian Jews alone at Auschwitz in the summer of 1944 were executed? That 44, or is that 44 or 43?
1944. Zum Teil geht die Zahl aber auch auf 43 zurück. Nur zum Teil. Die Zahl genau kann ich nicht angeben. Das Ende war 1944 im Herbst.
Right. Mass executions by gassing commenced during the summer of 41 and continued until fall 44. I personally supervised executions at Auschwitz until the 1st of December 43, and know by reason of my continued duties in the Inspectorate of Concentration Camps, WVHA, that these mass executions continued as stated above. All mass executions by gassing took place under the direct order, supervision, and responsibility of RSHA. I received all orders for carrying out these mass executions directly from RSHA. Are those statements true and correct, witness?
Jawohl.
5. On 1 December 43, I became chief of AMP 1 in AMP Group D of the WVHA, and in that office was responsible for coordinating all matters arising between RSHA and concentration camps under the administration of WVHA. I held this position until the end of the war. Pohl as chief of WVHA and Kaltenbrunner as chief of RSHA often conferred personally and frequently communicated orally and in writing concerning concentration camps. Now, you've already told us about the lengthy report. You have already told us about the lengthy report which you took to Kaltenbrunner in Berlin, so I will omit the remainder of paragraph 5. 6. The, quote, final solution, quote, close, of the Jewish question meant the complete extermination of all Jews in Europe. I was ordered to establish extermination facilities at Auschwitz in June of 41. At that time, there were already in the general government 3 other extermination camps, Belzec, Treblinka, and Walzek. These camps were under the Einstadt commando of the security police and SD. I visited Treblinka to find out how they carried out their extermination. The camp commandant at Treblinka told me that he had liquidated 80,000 in the course of 1/2 year. He was principally concerned with liquidating all the Jews from the Warsaw Ghetto. He used monoxide gas, and I did not think that his methods were very efficient. So when I set up the extermination building at Auschwitz, I used Cyclone B, which was a crystallized prussic acid which we dropped into the death chamber from a small opening. It took from 3 to 15 minutes to kill the people in the death chamber, depending upon climatic conditions. We knew when the people were dead because their screaming stopped. We usually waited 1/2 hour before we opened the doors and removed the bodies. After the bodies were removed, our special commandos took off the rings and extracted the gold from the teeth of the corpses. Is that all true and correct, witness?
Jawohl.
Incidentally, what was done with the gold which was taken from the teeth of the corpses? Do you know?
Jawohl.
Will you tell the tribunal?
Das Gold wurde eingeschmolzen und in Berlin dem Sanitätshauptamt der SS zugeführt.
Another improvement we made over at Treblinka was that we built our gas chambers to accommodate 2,000 people at one time, whereas at Treblinka, their 10 gas chambers only accommodated 200 people each. The way we selected our victims was as follows. We had 2 SS doctors on duty at Auschwitz to examine the incoming transports of prisoners. The prisoners would be marched by one of the doctors, who would make spot decisions as they walked by. Those who were fit for work were sent into the camp. Others were sent immediately to the extermination plants. Children of tender years were invariably exterminated, since by reason of their youth they were unable to work. Still another improvement we made over Treblinka was that at Treblinka the victims almost always knew that they were to be exterminated. And at Auschwitz we endeavored to fool the victims into thinking that they were to go through a delousing process. Of course, frequently they realized our true intentions, and we sometimes had riots and difficulties due to that fact. Very frequently, women would hide their children under the clothes, but of course, when we found them, we would send the children in to be exterminated. We were required to carry out these exterminations in secrecy, but of course, the foul and nauseating stench from the continuous burning of bodies permeated the entire area, and all of the people living in the surrounding communities knew that exterminations were going on at Auschwitz. Is that all true and correct, witness?
Jawohl.
Now, I will omit paragraphs 8 and 9, which have to do with the medical experiments as to which you've already testified. 10. Mr. Rudolf Meilner was the chief of the Gestapo at Katowice from approximately March 41 until September 43. As such, he frequently sent prisoners to Auschwitz for incarceration or execution. He visited Auschwitz on several occasions. The Gestapo court, the SS Stangericht, which tried persons accused of various crimes, such as escaping prisoners of war and so forth, frequently met within Auschwitz, and Meilner often attended the trial of such persons, who usually were executed in Auschwitz following their sentence. I showed Meilner throughout the extermination plant at Auschwitz, and he was directly interested in it, since he had to send the Jews from his territory for execution at Auschwitz. I understand English as it is written above. The above statements are true. This declaration is made by me voluntarily and without compulsion after reading over the statement. I have signed and executed the same at Nuremberg, Germany on the 5th day of April, 1946. Now I ask you, witness, is everything which I have read to you true, to your own knowledge?
Jawohl.
That concludes my cross-examination, except for one exhibit that our British allies would like to have in, which is a summary sheet of the exhibits which I introduced at the commencement of the cross-examination. That will be Exhibit US 810. It is a summary of the earlier exhibits that I put in with respect to the Waffen-SS at the commencement of my cross-examination.